Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This video is gonna be about impression techniques in RPD. So we have dual impression technique and selective pressure impression technique. Well, let's get this straight. Why do we need different impression technique in RPD? Why can't this be as simple as CD? In RPD cases, we have tissue and teeth, and thus the force distribution is different. Also, because of the property of resiliency of mucosa. We have resilient and non-resilient areas. Before moving ahead with the topic, we need to understand some terms like anatomic form and functional form. And let us understand them with these illustrations. So we have this mucosa at rest. And second picture is mucosa when under occlusal load or when we apply force through chewing or under the biting force. So the tissue here is displaced. In the third illustration, you can see we have a custom tray in pink and we are applying finger pressure and again the tissues are displacing. This is while taking impression. So the shape of ridge before any functional load is applied, that is when mucosa or tissues are at rest, is known as anatomic form. That is when patient is not chewing. Whereas the shape of ridge after when functional load is applied or under biting forces or occlusal forces, that is known as functional form. And the recording of this functional form of ridge, that is displaced tissue under biting forces or occlusal forces, is known as functional impression. And the dual impression technique means that we are recording the functional impression through border molding and also recording the tissues in anatomic state. And that these techniques are specially designed for distal extension cases, that is Kennedy's class 1 and 2, and also sometimes for Kennedy's class 4, that is for long span edentulous areas. Starting off with the Mclean's technique, here the custom tray is fabricated with occlusal rims for distal extension area or edentulous area. Then this tray along with occlusal rim is loaded with impression material. The patient bites on the occlusal rim and tray. Hence, this technique is a closed mouth technique. And since the patient is biting, this is known as functional impression. And custom tray, this should not be removed from the mouth. Over this, second impression is made, that is anatomic impression. Stock tray with alginate in it is placed over this functional impression and teeth, and this is known as super impression or over impression and even pickup impression. We apply finger pressure on the stock tray. This is very important. Then over impression is removed along with functional impression. The finger is used to apply pressure to push the first impression down towards the ridge to its functional biting position, and master cast is poured. This is a very important long answer question, and you must draw these diagrams and write the answer in the form of this flowchart. So coming back to the Mclean's technique, the disadvantages are the Mclean considered finger pressure equivalent to biting pressure, which is not true, as finger pressure will not produce the same amount of pressure or force as biting or occlusal forces. And in both the methods, that is Mclean's and Hindle's, pressure is used to record. Thus, the ridges they undergo resorption. Hindle's technique is same as that of Mclean's, except that Hindle and co-workers developed a special tray for this with 2 holes in it. Similar to Mclean's technique, a custom tray is prepared, border molding is done, impression is made, just like CD, and jaw relation is taken. Impression of the edentulous area is made with ZOE paste and record tissues in anatomic form because we are not applying any force or pressure here. Then a pickup impression is made with a modified tray and finger pressure is applied. You see, the anatomic impression was still in mouth, it was still in place, and then we made a second impression by applying finger pressure. That is functional impression. The disadvantages of Hindle's technique are that the tissues are under constant pressure, hence there is bone resorption and ischemia, and there is premature contact at rest. And why is that? You see, the major retention in RPD is provided by direct retainers or clasp assemblies. If the retention is good and tissues are recorded in compressed state, we know that tissues are recorded by applying pressure. So even at rest, tissues are constantly displaced. This will lead to ischemia and bone resorption. If retention isn't enough, the RPD will remain occlusal, that is lifted up to the recorded position. That is, the RPD will first contact opposite teeth even at rest and will create premature contact. Next is functional relining technique. This is especially for the resorbed ridges or loose RPDs. So we have this metal framework or we fabricate it on the denture base. We make two casts, diagnostic and master cast. Master cast is made after taking the final impression. Then we also make a refractory cast. It is made of material such that it withstands high temperature, and this is needed during investing or casting procedures. So we make the CPD framework, cast partial denture framework, and this metal framework is then placed on master cast. Then we also use this green stick which is adapted on this framework to do border molding, and secondary impression is made with ZOE. Then we have fluid wax technique. We use waxes that flow at mouth temperature. Correcta wax number 4 and Iowa wax. This is an open mouth technique. We have a cast and we adapt spacer on it. Over this spacer, we adapt denture framework. And on this framework, we put a tray material and remove the axis. We use the fluid wax on this tray constructed, that is framework and the tray material, and we do border molding and final impression is made. Last is selective pressure technique or altered cast technique. So we have a cast, we slice away the distal extension or edentulous area from it, then we produce groove on this cast. This metal framework was used for border molding and final impression was made through it. Then this framework along with the material in it, it is stabilized on the cast with sticky wax. Then the cast is inverted, beading and boxing is done, then we pour dental stone in it, and we get the altered cast. Those were the impression techniques of RPD. I hope you found this useful. Use the illustrations the way I have and write this technique point-wise or in a flowchart manner and you will score really good marks. And yeah, thank you.